Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Janet Ingraham Dwyer. I am library consultant for youth services at the State Library of Ohio and part of the Food Literacy and Libraries team, the group that is hosting this event today. Welcome to Gather at the Virtual Table. Today's event grew out of a conversation among librarians and allies that has been taking place over the past 2 years. We started connecting and emailing and Zooming close to the beginning of the pandemic around all sorts of topics and news and ideas and brainstorms about food and libraries. So we started this conversation a couple years ago. We want to continue it for as long as people need to eat and librarians are talking to each other, which we hope is a very, very, very long time. Libraries and food are two concepts that not everybody thinks about together, surprisingly enough, thanks to probably many decades of the signs on our doors that say no food in the library. A lot of the signs are down now. If you still have one on your library door, your policy is your policy, but we're delighted that you're here and we all believe in food and the library, that we're truly connected. So we pair those two concepts together. If people in a community are looking for cooking classes or a community garden or emergency groceries or a seed exchange or an after-school snack, historically, they might not think about their library. We want to change that. We want to continue to change that. And we are very excited for this opportunity to talk about food and libraries with colleagues from around the country. All types of communities and all types of libraries are represented in the registration and around the room today. Thank you for being here. Thank you for the interests and the convictions and the care that brought you here today. The food literacy and library teams is an informal network. We hope to grow it, and we invite everyone here to continue the conversation, both, of course, at this event today, but we also have several different venues and opportunities, and we're going to keep talking, and we invite you to just keep talking with us. We went through a few names on the way here. I think we started out calling ourselves the Food Literacy Super Team, which I missed that one. I like that name. National Partners on Food Literacy. We landed on simply Food Literacy and Libraries team. We're informal, but we do have a stated and formal goal, and that is building communities through food by sharing information, creating partnerships, and promoting literacy. We have some formal objectives to bring together libraries and their partners and allies who are creating and offering culinary literacy programming, who are participating in food distribution, or who are otherwise working to advance food literacy and food justice. Also to share resources, inspire best practices, and encourage partnerships. Also to promote food literacy and the value of the library in the food education arena. So now I'm going to introduce the other folks who have participated on the Food Literacy and Libraries team over the past 2 years and created today's event. For efficiency's sake, I'm just going to read their names and affiliations and they will wave to you. They all have great stories and they do amazing work. I hope you get to know them all. Ron Block, Cuyahoga County Public Library. Stephanie Chase, Boston Public Library. Christine Darpa, Wayne State University, Detroit. Jillian Engberg, Consultant, Children's Books and Media. Jennifer Jordabreck, North Liberty Library, Iowa. John Kerner, Milwaukee Public Library. Philip Lee, Readers to Eaters. Noah Lenstra, Let's Move in Libraries and University of North Carolina at Greensboro. Nicole Paratori, Augusta University. Katie Ritson, Free Library of Philadelphia. Raquel Sharp, Charlie Cart. I'm Janet Ingraham Dwyer. I'm from the State Library of Ohio. We have a few past super team members. I just want to mention quickly Rebecca Antill, Patrice Chamberlain, Liz Fitzgerald, and Hillary Dodge, author of Gather Around the Table, Food Literacy Programs, Resources, and Ideas for Libraries. Her book inspired the name of this event today, and it inspired a lot more than that as well. I encourage you to seek it out. We also want to thank Julie Elmore, Oakland City, Columbia Township Public Library, Indiana, for facilitating a breakout today. And I want to shout out one more person and then hand the mic over to her, and that is Aurora Sanchez, Healthy Communities Program Manager at the Free Library of Philadelphia, who will introduce our keynote speaker. Thanks again for being here. Have a wonderful morning or afternoon, depending on your time zone, and let's talk about food.
Thank you, Janet. Hello, everyone. My name is Aurora Sanchez. I work for the Free Library of Philadelphia. As Janet said, the project that I work on is called Healthy Communities. And Healthy Communities focuses on free, flavorful, nutritious, and diverse food programming in partnership with libraries all around the city of Philadelphia. And we center food traditions and dishes from around the world, which brings me to your keynote speaker. I am genuinely pleased to introduce Sarah Anderson, the Heritage Diet Curriculum Coordinator for Oldways. Oldways also lifts up and celebrates the healthy culinary traditions of our global community with a focus on Mediterranean, Latin American, African heritage, and Asian foods. And you may have already read Sarah's bio. That's wonderful. But I think what I want to highlight is what Sarah's bio tells us about Sarah, right? So with receiving her degree from Lesley University in Global Studies, I see Sarah's interest in the world. With her focus on homelessness, food insecurity, nutrition throughout the world, also with a focus on climate change and structural economic disadvantages, I see her interest in her care for the well-being of humanity, right? Especially our most disenfranchised community members. And with Sarah studying in Spain and exploring the language and cuisine and visiting the nearby countries like France and Switzerland and Morocco, I see her love of food and culture, right? Which is, maybe not food all the time, but definitely culture and definitely people is so quintessential to what we love in libraries, right? We lift up the humanities and people. Actually, if you saw High on the Hog, if you saw that series, like a small caveat, one of the quotes from that show is, "If you tell me what you eat, I can tell you where you're from," right? So much of who we are is tied up in what we eat. So what none of that tells us is that Sarah is a thoughtful and generous community partner whose enthusiasm for this work is really remarkable. And with that, I would like to welcome Sarah Anderson.
Thank you so much, Aurora, for that wonderful introduction. Hi, everyone. My name is Sarah Anderson, and I'm the Heritage Diets Coordinator for A Taste of African Heritage and A Taste of Latin American Heritage through Oldways nonprofit. I would like to thank you so much for joining me today. But first, I guess I'd love to talk a little bit about myself. I grew up in Houston, Texas, and I attended primary school in Harris County. What brought me to Oldways was, of course, my acceptance to Lesley, where I majored in global studies and minored in political science and sociology. So you're probably thinking, well, what led to my current career path in food and nutrition? Well, that's where Oldways and its Heritage Diets joins the conversation. I've been with Oldways since July of 2020, and it's been great since this role really combines my passion for food, culture, and traditions. The Oldways Heritage and Health Program focuses on the nutrition of people of the African diaspora. And it features the 4 major regions of the African diaspora, which is West and Central Africa, the American South, the Caribbean islands, and South America. And as someone who's traveled to about 4 different continents and several countries, I must say that being well-traveled has really broadened my perspective of using food as a lens to learn about one's culture, and it simply has a way of connecting us all together. For instance, from food, we can learn about the landscape, society, and language used to describe a dish, and it's connecting, and that's what makes it beautiful. In the past, I've interned with Diet for a Small Planet author Frances Moore Lappé, and as librarians, I bet we've probably heard about her books. And from that experience, it really opened my journey towards food and nutrition, but also with the social justice underlining. In a way, I feel that Oldways nonprofit has found me, and after taking the time to learn more about their African Heritage and Health Program, I was intrigued on a personal level to learn more about my own heritage. Now, the program was created by our African Heritage Advisory Board members, and this consists of chefs, culinary historians, cookbook authors, and educators in the field. So I admire that Oldways has brought together a highly capable team to create an evidence-based, culturally sensitive curriculum, and I am proud to be a part of this. Now, let's talk a little bit about our Taste of African Heritage program. I'm just going to share my screen. Let's go to see here. Oh, perfect. And great. Now I hope everyone can see the screen that doesn't have the notes. If I can get a thumbs
We
up.
can, Sarah.
Yep.
The screen
Perfect.
looks great. It looks like a slideshow.
All right, as it should. All right, well, perfect. Let's get started. Now, a little bit about Oldways. Let me just minimize this. Great. So for those of you who are unfamiliar with Oldways, we are a 501c3 nonprofit. And as a nonprofit, we're dedicated to improving the public health by inspiring individuals and organizations to embrace the healthy, sustainable joys of old ways of eating. And our heritage-based diets are high in taste, nourishment, sustainability, and joy. What we're well known for is creating our Mediterranean diet pyramid, and that was in partnership with the Harvard School of Public Health, as well as our whole grain stamp, which you'll see on food packages at libraries, and that's because we're a part of the Whole Grains Coalition. What I focus on is our heritage diet. So that is our African heritage and our Latin American heritage and our A Children's Taste of African Heritage. But yeah, actually you'll see on the right-hand side is a picture of one of our ambassadors local to the Boston area, Gloria Fernandez. She's absolutely wonderful and she teaches a lot of the children's curriculum. So let's go on to the next slide. Now on this slide, it will be an introduction video just to give you a little bit more about Oldways, and I hope you guys enjoy it. And it was filmed by our program ambassadors and advisory board members.
This is more than just about food. It really is about shaping people's identity and how they see themselves through their food, how they see their culture being a part of their health solution. The Taste of African Heritage and Health program is for anyone, whether it's been trying to lose weight, improve their health, lacking cooking skills, don't know other creative ways, enhance their meals in their homes. The research really does show that when we eat a more traditional heritage diet that we improve our health outcomes, and I think that's really the core of what Oldways is about and what it's doing in terms of helping the community. This program now with the Taste of African Heritage and Health.
African Heritage Diet Pyramid was created with a committee of nutrition scientists, experts in culinary history and African American foodways.
It's much easier to do because you can identify with that. I know what greens are, and so I can identify with eat a lot of this. You can have the brown rice and the millet and you know the barley. You have all of these healthy whole grains here.
And those kinds of grains that really is a part of the heritage that needs to be built upon. On top of that, the tubers, the healthy starches from the yams to the sweet potatoes. And then you have the balance of fruits that will come from everything from the tropical fruits like the papayas, the melons, the mangoes, the pineapples, the bananas, plantains, and them serving as really desserts compared to what we traditionally have now.
Once you sort of shift your mindset to looking at your plate as more of a heritage plate, it's going to redefine everything that you can put on there. So when you look at a plate now and you say, that should have some whole grains, or that should have and beans, and my greens, and my vegetables, fruit for dessert.
And it's so empowering This idea of connecting to your heritage and improving your health through connecting to your heritage.
In the Taste of African Heritage and Health program, we evaluate how the students are going through the process and what lessons that we can learn to improve the program and what it has meant for their life and for their family, and most of all, how they have improved their health.
So my name is Danessa Bowling. I live in Houston. I am actually on my 4th series of the class. I committed myself to do this for a full year. So it was a time of a serious transition for me. And so at this point, I had lost my mom, my grandmother, and my aunt to cancer. It's like, okay, being realistic, I'm overweight, I'm at risk for diabetes, yeah, I'm African American. I just didn't know what to do. I can't control cancer, I can't control heart disease, I can't control diabetes. I can control this. This is my thing I can do. And so I thought, well, I'll do it and I'll teach it and it'll help me. Is in addition to teaching and learning and eating healthy, you get this sense of community with people.
This idea of culture being a part of your medicine. We talk about cultural competency, but we never really see the integration of culture in the form of community programs. And the Taste of African Heritage and Health program does the very thing that the community has been longing for, and why it's being embraced so much more than ever, and why it's so desperately needed.
I believe that this can be the thing that could bring people together, where we could break down some barriers that we never thought could be broken down with food.
The idea of our culture and our community, they both are tied into our cuisine, can be a part of our medicine, our nutrition. That's what this program provides more than ever.
Perfect. Well, yes, that was just a video, an overview of our African Heritage program. I must add a little tidbit. Back in March, we attended the Houston Rodeo with Danessa Bowling, who was one of the ambassadors featured in that video. And you would not be able to recognize her now. And she doesn't even recognize her. Just, you know, having the sustainable food ways of eating and eating, you know, culturally relative foods to one's culture. It's just so amazing on the changes that it can do to one's life. And also, you know, the physical changes that it can do. Danessa looks so healthy and amazing. And I'm just really excited to be a part of her journey. But it's so beautiful to watch this video and kind of remember, you know, the past, but also in the present tense. So perfect. Let's talk a little bit more about what is a Taste of African Heritage. So Taste of African Heritage is a 6-week cooking and nutrition curriculum based upon healthy and plant-based foods across the African diaspora. So as mentioned, the 4 major regions, so the American South, the Caribbean islands, West and Central Africa, and South America. And it is focused on actually this pyramid over to the right-hand side. This was developed in 2011 by African Heritage and Health Advisory Board members. And each of the lessons are actually based upon this pyramid. So you have lesson 1 on herbs and spices, lesson 2 on leafy greens, 3 on whole grains, 4 on beans and rice, 5 on tubers and mashes, and 6 on fruits, vegetables, and healthy lifestyle. Now let's go over to the next slide. But one thing that we love to say is by reclaiming our heritage, we can reclaim our health. So when you think about African heritage, a taste of African heritage, think about reclaiming our heritage to reclaim our health. Now, here are some of the results from our 6-week class series that we've done. Some of the statistics that I could pull out for you is 98% of adult participants report that history and heritage were positive motivators for eating and living well. And in adults, systolic blood pressure decreased by an average of 4.4 over the 6-week period. And 29.7% of adult participants were able to reduce their blood pressure by a full stage. So it's just amazing the results that we're able to receive from our 6-week class series, working with various partners. And there is more. Great. So research that we've done also based upon this curriculum that confirms the health benefits of a traditional African heritage diet is, switching to a traditional African diet improves markers for cancer, reduce inflammation, and improve gut microbiome. And improving culturally appropriate interventions focuses on healthy foods that are already regularly enjoyed within the Black cuisine, and thus promoting good nutrition in Black communities. And also, making culturally sensitive modifications to diet programs can lead to improvements in blood pressure, weight, and other health parameters. And, you know, these are statistics that we're throwing out here, but this is also things that we've able to visually see within our community of, you know, partners who are utilizing this curriculum and have just been able to make those little changes day by day. Perfect. So now let's go into the next slide. So in the news recently, we actually worked with the University of Minnesota and published a journal, an academic journal, and it focuses on the impacts of our A Taste of African Heritage curriculum. And that journal is actually available for free through the Journal of Nutritional Dietitians, and it can be found on the Oldways website. And I have the link here, but I could definitely share it with you guys at the end if you're interested in learning more. It's super exciting. It recently got published in February. So this is something very new, but there isn't a ton of research out there that talks about, you know, the benefits of culturally, you know, relevant diet, heritage-based diets. So this is really exciting to be a part of and a fun time to connect with Oldways. Also, as of, what was this, like March or late March, early April, we just learned that we are approved within the SNAP-Ed toolkit. The A Taste of African Heritage curriculum was improved in the 2022 SNAP-Ed toolkit. So super exciting. And if you go on that website now, you won't see it available. I believe they'll be publishing it in July. So you should see it available then. But very exciting. And also feel free to follow up towards the end if you have any questions, and I'll have my email link available too. So heritage as a motivator for health. As you can see, all recipes within A Taste of African Heritage are 100% plant-based, meaning that there's no dairy or no meat, but it really makes up for that within each of the recipes with herbs and spices. Now, 8% of Black Americans are vegetarian and 3% versus 3% of the general population. And 31% of non-white Americans have been able to reduce their meat consumption in the past year versus 19% of white Americans. And graduates of our A Taste of African Heritage curriculum overwhelmingly report that heritage is a strong motivator for health. And I'd love to give some testimonials, but also I want to be conscious of time and show you guys a cooking demo. So let's go on to the next slide. Within our A Children's Taste of African Heritage, you'll see on the front cover, which I'll show you later on, is this image, which is the Sankofa image. And it's really cool because it's like this bird with its arch neck over, and it translates to go back and take. And so the symbol of this bird arching its neck to take an egg from its back symbolizes one, taking back the past, what is good, and bringing it into the present in order to make positive progress. So it's just really amazing of, you know, our Children's Taste of African Heritage. And it's kind of like passing on the torch, you know, passing on the heritage and bringing those healthy recipes to our younger generations. So now let's do a quick cooking demo, and this is of Mafi Stew. It's a Senegalese dish that you can find in West Africa, and it's featured within our African Heritage curriculum. Great. Perfect. So that was the Mafi Stew, and you'll see that definitely featured within the curriculum. It's a favorite amongst a lot of our participants. So now, what are some ways to bring a taste of African heritage to your community? So what you see there's the top one on the left-hand side, that's the children's, that's the adults, and then we also have an e-course. We offer 2 ways of bringing the curriculum to your area, but I could talk about that actually in the next couple of slides. But I just want to mention that A Taste of African Heritage has been taught over 445 times since 2012 and throughout 26 states. These are old statistics, so there is many more as of now. We've actually reached the international level. And so, yeah, it's just super exciting to, be a part of the program. But our newest resource is actually our e-course that you'll see here that was created and published in December. So in this slide, this is just our African Heritage and Health Advisory Board members. So these are some of the amazing individuals who came together to build this curriculum. Now, this slide, I would love to talk a little bit about further reading. So this is also available on our website, but for any of you libraries that are interested in, just picking out a couple of books to use for your upcoming reading clubs or book clubs, we have a more updated reading list actually included within the curriculum. But this list can also be found on our website, but these are just a few of our favorites. And it's really amazing because a lot of these books were actually written by our advisory board members who created or piloted the African Heritage curriculum. And all of these authors were actually connected with in some way. So super exciting. Now, there are 2 ways of licensing the A Taste of African Heritage curriculum. You could either purchase the Teacher's Manual and Student Handbooks through our web store. So that would be the printed spiral-bound copies that you could get through the website, or you could get our yearly digital subscription. And so that includes all the materials in a large zip file. So usually I would email those over to you. You would download those to your computer and give those out to your colleagues and participants who will be participating in the class series. For more information, you could definitely email me at sanderson@oldwayspt.org, or you could also connect by going through the Oldways website, oldwayspt.org/ATOAH. And we also have training on how to become an African Heritage and Health instructor. And that free training is available on our website 24/7. What you would want to do first is fill out the teacher entrance form, and then there's a 1-hour video that you would watch. It's a webinar, and so you would watch that and then take the quiz, and then those results would be emailed to us. We would review them and then follow up. If everything looks good, we'll follow up with your certificate. So it's not too strenuous, it is a 1-hour long video for training, but the quiz is fairly short, and that's how you'll get your certificate. And then you can, show that to your colleagues or, whoever to let them know that you're ready to teach the class series. Great. Well, yes, these are the ways of bringing, your African heritage curriculum to your area. And also that is everything that I've said about the licensing process mirrors exactly the same way with the Latin American heritage. Of course, the curriculums are very different, but as far as licensing, still the 2 ways of either the printed or the yearly subscription. My email contact is there, and that's the website also. And yeah, if you have any questions and would like to learn more, I love talking on the phone. And so please feel free to connect with me and we can talk a little bit more about the curriculum. So thank you so much. Yeah, well, let me just exit out of this. And I don't know what I'm doing here. Let's stop share. Perfect.
Thank you so much, Sarah. That was truly wonderful, and really great resources. And just preempting a question that people may have, could you tell us just a little bit more about some of the implications of Oldways now being a program available through SNAP-Ed? What would be some strategies you would recommend to take advantage of that opportunity?
Yeah, so we're included, A Taste of African Heritage is included within the SNAP-Ed library. And so when you're talking about ways of implementing it, you have valid proof right through the library where you can find the adults A Taste of African Heritage. And it is also now included in the toolkit, but it won't be published until July. So you should see it up on the website then. But yeah, if you have any questions as a SNAP-Ed implementing agency on how to bring it to your organization, feel free to connect with us, because we've in the past have worked, we still do work with plenty of SNAP-Ed agencies that are willing to assist in that process. So if you need any information, and we also have information if you're applying for a grant. So we have like a couple of things that you will be able to utilize in your application for submitting your grant proposal. So I'm in reach, most definitely.
Great. No, that's awesome. I appreciate it, Sarah. And we have this set up to be kind of just a regular Zoom meeting. So feel free to ask any questions however you want. You can use your microphone, video. We have about 90 people in the room, but don't let that deter you from speaking up. So any questions or comments? Some people really like the recipe. So another Sarah Ray actually found a direct link to that recipe. So I think some people are going to be making that later, but other what questions or comments do you have for Sarah Anderson?
Hi, Sarah. This is Janet from Ohio. Thank you so much for everything that you do, and thank you for being here with us this afternoon. I was very taken with, and I had to check some biases when you shared about the rate of vegetarian diets and plant-based diets among different ethnicities, because I think that I live with the stereotypes about soul food, and I was completely unaware that white folk have a much lower rate of vegetarianism, and I think that just goes back to stereotypes. Where do you, and you might have said this and I was too floored to hear it, where do the statistics come from? Where do you find out this data? It's just fascinating to me.
Yes, so we actually have the sources cited on each of the PowerPoint slides.
Okay, I'll go back and find, then we all have access to it when we get the recording and the slides, and I'll do that. Yes. Thank you so much. I appreciate your list of cookbooks that you shared also. Brian Terry is fantastic.
Yes, he's amazing. We just did a Instagram live with him a couple months ago, and he is so fabulous. Like it was just, the conversation was so cool. It was like we're meeting up with him and we're like, we're huge fans, and he's like, I know you guys and I'm a huge fan. So he's absolutely fabulous. But also when you're thinking about the statistics, another reason why they're significantly higher is because the Black population is smaller than, of course, the white population in the United States. So if a higher number of people are switching over to a more plant-based diet, of course, it's going to automatically be higher for, it's going to show as higher because the population is smaller. Mm-hmm. So, that's kind of a way that you could work with the statistics, but it's still very relevant. And there's a whole movement of just a lot of people, of the African diaspora that are just moving more towards a plant-based diet, because you don't really need meat in ways, like you can get proteins from a lot of other sources, but we're not telling people to, exactly pick up the label of vegetarian, vegan, or pescatarian. We think that plant-based is a more inclusive language. It's more welcoming, and it's very comforting for people who are just starting to make that transition of, adding more plant-based healthy options to their dinner plate. So I've learned that that is really just a lot more inclusive, and even people who have been vegan or vegetarian for years may not label themselves in that way and prefer to use plant-based. So that's the new buzzword that's going around, but I'm super here for it, and it's a lot more inclusive and I love it.
Thank you. I appreciate everything that you've just said. Because I'm one of the many hosts here and because I happen to be unmuted, I'll also share a question, if that's okay with you, Noah, that showed up in the chat from a couple of people who are curious about whether Oldways has a program for First Nations communities.
I would have to double check on that because that sounds familiar, but I'm not 100% sure. Would you mind explaining a little bit about it just to see if it comes up in my memory? Or I could always look into it after the presentation because I actually am curious. But yeah, I'll have to double check on that.
Thank you.
Yeah, and Aurora, maybe I'm sorry, Sarah, just to follow up. I'd be curious. You talked a lot about a taste of African heritage, and I wonder with a taste of the Latin American heritage, there may be some incorporation of indigenous foodways in that. But could you tell us a little bit more about kind of a taste of Latin American heritage? That's a big region, of course. So yeah, tell us a little bit more about that. I think people would be interested.
Yeah, absolutely. Our Taste of Latin American Heritage is, of course, a newer curriculum compared to our African heritage, but it was still built the same way by a few of our advisory board members who are, of course, of that heritage that came together. And, you know, maybe they've published cookbooks, maybe they've, you know, did culinary studies, but very well advised and, you know, came together to build our Latin American heritage curriculum. It is the same amount of lessons, so there's still 6 lessons. The only one that is more is the children's, and our Latin American heritage is available in English and Spanish, so all of the resources included. It is really exciting. I've noticed that a lot of our licensees who license the Latin American heritage, of course, have like a demographics where, you know, it's just a higher Latinx community and that they work with. And I think it's super exciting because a lot of the flavors, the recipes are just so fun to incorporate within your day-to-day life. But also, one of the things that I have heard is that, you know, some of the spices or some of the ingredients can be a little harder to find at your local grocery store, but that's the fun part to me. It's all about, you know, encouraging participants and, you know, instructors and organizations to exit your comfort zone, to go out to grocery stores, you know, where they do have those ingredients and you can find them anywhere. You just have to look for them and explore. So it's a really exciting curriculum. And, you know, it's so funny because either people will license the African heritage and the Latin American heritage together, or they'll start with one of them and then add another one. But they're really, it's a beautiful curriculum. I can't get over the graphics, like just the recipes. One of my favorite is the red lentil stew from the Latin American heritage. And then there's also the boiled plantains that are that's just delicious. But if you are, you know, if you just want to try some of the recipes from the Latin American heritage, you can actually go on the Oldways website and then go to recipes and then click on the box on the left-hand side that has the Latin American heritage, and it'll show a whole glossary of recipes, and they're free and available on our website. Not all of them, of course, there's different ones included in the curriculum, so you won't find all of them from the curriculum from the website, but it's super fun to do with your family, and you know, it's a lot of fun. I love both of them.
Yeah, that's great, Sarah. Thank you. And just to follow up, so a librarian actually from a rural part of Northern Ontario asked about the First Nations, and she's specifically interested in Ojibwe, Cree. So yeah, I don't know if you have any thoughts about that kind of specific tribal communities, foodways, or yeah, any any reactions to that?
Yes, I feel like I've heard this before, but I'm not sure that we're directly affiliated with this organization. Although we do have a couple of, we have very few, but a couple of Native American heritage recipes featured on our website. But whenever times like people actually want to learn more about that, whenever there's heritage diets that we don't go over, we actually connect them with various other nonprofits, because we don't have the answers to everything, and we don't have all of the heritage diets. We don't represent all of them in a way. Of course, we want to provide as many, as a nonprofit, we want to provide as many free resources as possible. But I think it's important that we don't kind of take the narrative away from the Indigenous community and also kind of put like a westernized lens on it. Oldways is very, very focused on doing our heritage-based diets and connecting with people of that heritage to build that curriculum. If we're not in connection with that community directly, then we will not go out of the way to build something, because we want it to be culturally relative and, just not be problematic, essentially. So,
No, I think that's great, and I really appreciate your cultural sensitivity and not kind of claiming to be all things for all people, and yeah, and really, yeah. But so I'd encourage that this librarian to reach out. You may within your organization may have some connections to others. Just one last question before we move into our breakaways. Philip asked about work with school nutrition programs or other food service programs, and he included a link to New York City schools offer plant-powered Fridays in addition to meatless Mondays. So yeah, does Oldways do work with schools? Or yeah, any other, if you'd be willing to comment on that.
yeah, so actually that's where our children's heritage comes in. So we recently updated it. So now the children's curriculum fits the Common Core standards and can be taught in schools for grades 3 through 6. And it also fits the Shape American Fitness standards for schools in physical education for grades 3 and 4. So that was a part of why we recently updated our children's A Taste of African Heritage. It's kind of structured the same way as our adults, except instead of 6 lessons, it actually includes 7. And the recipes, of course, are different. Some of them are the same, but a lot of them are more, curated towards the age group. And also we included, a lot more activities. So, there's a lot of handouts and many workshops that you can do with the children's. And also we have, this is my favorite, but it's the little fitness minute at the beginning of each of the lessons. So it incorporates like stretching or a mini like exercise before starting the class series. And I think it's a really good way of engaging with the younger audience. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. And that's kind of what we do with the children's. And as far as age group, I would say between ages 8 through 12. And we also, say that parents and guardians and siblings are encouraged to participate with the students.
Yeah, that's great, and we're getting close to time, but I think Maddie Wilson just asked a really great question that others may have as well. As you know, in libraries, sometimes it can be difficult to have a sequential curriculum because people will come into one class at a time, and so Maddie asks, do all of the lessons build on each other, or would it be possible to do kind of one-off programs since you can't necessarily count on people coming back to the next session?
Yes, that's one thing that I love about the curriculum is that they do not build on each other. I would say the only part that I could possibly see is at the very beginning where there's like the homework review. And usually it's just like a reading of like an excerpt of, one of the cookbook authors featured. But besides that, no, the lessons do not build upon each other. Each lesson is different. So you have the urban spices, then it switches to greens, then it switches to whole grains. So a lot of licensees that we've worked with will sometimes use a lesson, so say leafy greens as a workshop, and they'll utilize that to promote an upcoming 6-week class series. And especially with the community farms that we work with, or people that have that own their own farms and gardens, they'll utilize the lessons based upon the produce that they have growing at their gardens. And so it's a lot of fun because all of the recipes can be cooked on a simple stovetop. You don't need any fancy kitchen setup or any fancy, you could literally just have a portable stovetop that you just plug in. You can cook all of the recipes there. And it shows you how to either use fresh or canned ingredients, but everything is very easy to source in that sense. So yeah, and a long way of saying that, but yes, they do not build off of each other, and there's no specific structure. Like, we've worked with licensees who have done started with lesson 6 and then switched over to lesson 3 and then did lesson 4. So I think it's really good to kind of just, read the room and follow the interests of your participants and utilize the curriculum in that way. But, as far as data collection, since we do like getting those entrance and exit surveys and those consent forms, as long as we get that 6-week class series, that is super important to us. So.
No, thank you. Thank you so much, Sarah. It's been really wonderful learning both about your organization and about you, and also just about your approach to culinary heritage and food education. So really appreciate you taking the time to join with us. And you're welcome to to continue hanging around if you'd like. But right now we're going to segue into our breakout rooms. And just to recap, if you didn't see it in the chat, I will be sending a recording of Sarah's remarks along with her slides and some additional resources. So you will have access to all of that. And I've just found Sarah to be amazingly wonderful to work with. And so would also encourage folks to reach out to her directly. And again, they are a nonprofit organization, so everything is about the community. And so thanks once again, Sarah. Just transitioning to a few logistical things. I have now opened the breakout rooms, and so you can now move yourself into whatever breakout room that you may wish to go to. And I have things organized by topic. So yeah, start moving yourself into breakout rooms. You can choose to go to one breakout room, or if you wish, you can go to one breakout room and jump to another breakout room. These breakout rooms will be repeated. So our first breakout room will go from 12:45 Eastern to 1:30 Eastern, and then we're going to have an amazing demo of a cooking using the Charlie Cart project with Ron Block of Cuyahoga County and Raquel Sharp from 1:30 to 1:45. And then from 1:45 to 2:30, these breakout room topics will repeat themselves. And yeah, Chris, thank you for that. So to find the breakout room, if you just move your mouse anywhere around your screen, you should see it looks like four blocks kind of in a cube next to the words reactions. If you click on that, it will pull up the 5 breakout rooms, and then you find the one that you'd like to join and just click join. I can also assign people. Yes, yeah, and so if you are having troubles, I can also move people to breakout rooms, and it will probably have a little bit of transition time as people figure this out. I'm going to stay in this main room throughout. So if anyone gets stuck in the main room and doesn't know what to do, I'll be here. And yeah. Yeah, and thanks Jacqueline as well for that. Yeah, and let's see. I see people moving into the breakout room. There's still a few people here in the main room. If you're struggling in any way to transition, just for folks who are still in here, at 1:25, I'll be sending a 5-minute notice to let people know we're about to close the breakout rooms. And then at 1:30, we will close the breakout rooms and come back into the main room. And for folks who are still here, just let me know if I can help you transition to the breakout room. And I see Josh. You're here in kind of the main room. I know, and I'm thrilled to now turn things to Raquel Sharp, Deputy Director of the Charlie Cart Project, and Ron Block from the Cuyahoga County Public Library in Ohio, who will be doing a cooking demo and sharing with us about Charlie Cart at the library. So Raquel, go ahead and take it away when you're ready.
All right, thanks so much, Noah. So Ron and I are going to be sharing some just general information about how to get started cooking at the library, and we wanted to share a really simple recipe that you could do with or without a Charlie Cart, but of course the Charlie Cart helps. Today we actually don't even have a Charlie Cart because I am at home and so I don't have it, but I am using the induction burner that Charlie Cart comes with and an induction ready stock pot. So very minimal ingredients for this recipe. We're going to be showing you how to make a quick pickle. So quick pickles are great because it's a
Raquel, I apologize for interrupting. Could you stop sharing on your laptop, because right now that's kind of taking up the yeah. Perfect. Thank you. Now we can see you much better. Yeah, thanks. Go ahead. Sorry for interrupting.
No worries. Okay, so today we're going to be making a quick pickle, and it's a great way to extend the life of your vegetables or preserve your vegetables for a longer period of time. So I know in our breakout room, we were talking about getting food boxes from the food pantry or even from the library food refrigerator. And so, you know, if you just have carrots or turnips or radishes or onions, things that you just have extra of, you can always preserve them with a quick pickle. And it's a really fun and easy activity to engage your patrons. So today I've just boiled a simple brine, and we'll show the recipe in a second, but it's water, vinegar, garlic. I'm gonna add some spices here. And if you are cooking at the library, it's a great way to allow your patrons to get creative. So they can add whatever spices they want. I have mustard seed, I have coriander seed, cumin seed, a little bit of red pepper flakes because I like them spicy, some allspice, and some mustard seed, and of course garlic. These are some cloves just in case. So if you give your patrons options, they can pick and choose what they want in their brine. I'm going to add a little bit of mustard seed, some coriander, a little bit of allspice, some cumin. And you let it boil for 3 minutes. And then once the brine is boiled, all you have to do is pour them over your jars of vegetables. Let it cool down before you try to seal it, close it up, and pop it in the fridge. I would give it at least, a day to really soak up those spices. But after that, they're going to taste really delicious with all of your spices and your vinegar. Optional, you can add a little sweetener. Today I added a little bit of agave. But you could add regular sugar or honey or anything like that. So it's a really easy way to get started and also engage your patrons. I'm gonna turn it over to my screen so we can all see the slide deck here. And while I'm doing that, Ron, do you want to talk a little bit about how it worked at your library?
So we've talked a few times today about one of the key elements of this, which is really getting to know your customers and getting to know not only what you can introduce them to that they might be willing to hear, but also what's available in their community, because you don't want them to have these ingredients that they have no way to get to bring into their homes. But once you do that and you find out what they want, especially this particular program, we did this at the library. We married it actually with some of our technology and makerspace things. So our group had the ability to do some etching on their canning jars before they did it. So they brought them into this program and they learned a lot about cutting vegetables they might not have tried before. They didn't know they could cook them. One of the things they kept saying was that they didn't know what to do with all of the stuff that they got from the food bank. It's like, how do I keep it longer so people, it doesn't go to waste? And so we pulled this all together, and they learned to cut, they learned to, and like you said, recipe is very important because they're learning some science there too, without knowing that they're learning science. And so all these little things. And it also, one of the great things about it was that it was a whole bunch of people that didn't know each other that came into a room and did this program, and then they want more. They want more, they want to come back. They got lots of ideas for what they want you to give them. But this particular one that we're talking about was just such a great community builder.
Absolutely. I love everything you said about getting to know your audience and just meeting them where they are and engaging them in ways that, go beyond just the cooking part. Of course, they're learning some fundamentals, but also it's community. It's about coming together, knowing, even just realizing that your library is offering these types of programs. And it gets people hooked to come back to the library, right?
Absolutely.
Here's the just general recipe for those of you who want it and want to use it at your library. I'm sure we can coordinate with Noah on sending this out after. And these are some wonderful pictures from Ron's program at the Cuyahoga County Library. Just some things that he put together. So you can see they did some cucumbers and carrots. And here's the general recipe. It's really simple, and it's great because it doesn't require a lot on your end, but it's really creative, and I think patrons really like it because they get to pick and choose what they are putting in their jars, and you get to take it home, right? So that's super fun. You get to take it home and taste it later. Here are some photos of how it actually works at the library. You can see how happy the patrons are. And Ron, did they etch the same day? Was that part of it?
We did that in two parts. They did the etching on one day, and then the following week they brought them back because they had to cure a little bit. So they came back the next week for the next part. But it kept them engaged for a really long time. And I'll just point out here that well after this program, many of these people came back and said, I did this now. I've made this kind of brine. I did this. I tried this. I experimented with this. And boy, isn't that just what we want?
Right. You're piquing their curiosity. You're giving them an entry point into, food exploration, and they're just coming back with all sorts of ideas. I love it. How many people would you say you could manage at one time doing this?
Well, it's really a space issue. So that particular room, we were able to host 12 people because we had to give them space for cutting on their tables, all the equipment that each needed so that they had their own, and that was just theirs. And then they could pick and choose from the vegetables that we had there, which ones they wanted to pickle and which ones they don't like, they could put aside. And they really got into it.
Wonderful. Here's an example of just how many Charlie carts are out there. So if you don't have one, it's likely that one is really close by for you to collaborate with. And if not, you can always reach out to us to learn how to get a Charlie cart at your library. Of course, so you can stay in touch with us. I think Noah was going to put my contact information in the chat, but also you can email our general email and just to get to know what kinds of things the Charlie cart offers and how it really works at the library. Ron, also amazing resource. He's such a food education champion. And Noah, do we have any questions?
Yeah. Thanks, Raquel. We do, and I think for the first one from Suzanne Moore here in North Carolina, my colleague down the road in Wilkes County. Is there any insurance liability involved if patrons are using things like sharp knives? What are some, or concerns about burning? Are those issues that folks have to navigate? And do you have any kind of advice for navigating some of those liability issues that may arise?
Yeah, great question. I'll give my answer, then Ron, you can weigh in. But essentially, it's really county by county. You have to look at your health department and really understand what the requirements are. So it varies a lot. Also, there are really ways to help folks do some of the prep. And then if you don't want them near the hot plate or near anything hot, you can do the pouring. You know, there's ways to kind of just minimize risk overall. Ron, do you want to answer that as well?
Yeah, it's the same thing. It is county by county, but one of the things that I recommend is to look within your own insurance policies that your organization holds, because we found out that ours actually covers those kinds of things already. So if it were to ever happen, we are covered. We do have, as a backup, we have release and hold harmless forms that we make people fill out for some things that aren't necessarily covered by the insurance. But it's good to do your homework, know where you're covered, and know your county, what their laws and things are. And if people aren't comfortable, like you said, we'll do it for them. But a lot of the things that come with the Charlie cart aren't super sharp. They're not real dangerous. It's not like you're having the Ginsu knives out and flying around the air. But and that's part of the teaching too. It's part of the teaching is teaching the safety. It's teaching proper use of things to prevent the and all the staff. We like to have them educated and do food prep training.
That's wonderful. Yeah, the training of the staff is really important. At the Charlie Cart, we offer a training to those who do have a cart, but also, of course, you want to do your own training for anyone who is coming into the room to support volunteers, support staff, interns, all of that for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, this has been great, and a few people wanted to know about the resources. So this main room will be recorded, so the video will go out along with Raquel's slides. But other questions for Raquel and Ron, and again, feel free to just use your mic and video. Keep this conversation going. Just had a quick question here from Ontario. Do you have carts for seniors with accessibility, ergonomic, physical needs such as arthritis, or any thoughts about kind of accessibility for people who may have difficulties with conventional? And any thoughts on that?
That's a great question. Go ahead, Raquel.
Oh, well, I was just going to say that I'm trying to find the photo, but you can see that in this photo that the Charlie cart is a focal point for the facilitator to prep. And then Ron's got some folks at working groups at tables doing the prep work before they actually make their pickles. So the Charlie cart, yes, it's about 4 feet high, but a lot of times you don't have to be around it to utilize the stuff on it. Really, it's just, to power the induction, things like that. So the room itself matters a lot in terms of accessibility, the height of the table, the chairs. So you can kind of, you can be flexible in that. Like say if you were working with young children or kids, or even adults with disabilities or folks with disabilities of all ages. So that would be my answer. It's pretty flexible in that regard. Ron, do you want to add?
Just my answer is the exact same as yours, but we've actually had some people with mobility issues that have come to the programs and they didn't want to sign up. They finally did. And we're like, we're so easily able to accommodate them and make them feel a part of the larger group and not feel, put aside. They're just, it's really simple with the heights of the tables and the things and moving things off the Charlie cart.
Yeah, thank you. And we have a couple minutes left, and I'd love to hear just if people put people on the spot. I know in the room we have a number of people that actually have Charlie carts or participate in the Charlie Cart project. I know Christy Bondi from the Perry Memorial Library and some others. If you have a Charlie cart at your library, we'd love to hear just about your experience. Anything that you may have learned about how this may work in your space. Oh, and I see Christy, I think, is trying to get connected.
Yeah, I can go ahead. Can everyone hear me?
Yep. Yeah, I sure can, Christy.
Yeah, so ours is fairly new. We got it from a healthcare foundation out here, had a grant funding. And we have done, the plan is to do 5 different series. We're on our 3rd series right now. We're actually finishing up one of the classes as I'm on this webinar. They're down in our conference room doing one on mindful eating. So we've just kind of come up with different series. We have lunch and learn series, and then we had an after school series for kids. So it's been really successful. We've had a wait list for them, and we're looking forward to the endless opportunities that we can do with our Charlie Cart. We've primarily had some nonprofit organizations here in our county that have done the cooking for us, and our cooperative extension.
Yeah, endless opportunities. And thank you, Christy. And Christy is in a more rural part of North Carolina. And I like this approach of, yeah, the Charlie Cart being a catalyst for partnerships. And just before we move back into our breakout rooms, I do see one final question about ventilation. Has there any concerns about doing something with the Charlie Cart yeah, if you're doing something that involves induction cooking or heating, do you have to do anything with ventilation? Is that something that you'd have to navigate if you were to bring a Charlie Cart to your library?
That's a great question. I would say no, there's no ventilation that you need to like add to the Charlie Cart or anything like that. Do make sure that you're in a well ventilated room. So it really depends on your building and where you plan to do this. You can always do it outside. You could do it by a window or with windows open, but I wouldn't say that you need to add any sort of ventilation component. Ron, did you have any other thoughts on that?
No, it's exactly what you said. We've done the same thing. We make sure that they're in the largest rooms that we can, and we have access to windows if possible and things like that. But there's never been an issue. So.
Yeah, that's good to hear. And just yeah, I see Rebecca has been waiting. She had her hand raised, and apologies for missing that if you've had your hand raised for a while, Rebecca. But Rebecca, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I was going to say, we just got our Charlie Cart in November here in Dearborn, and we absolutely adore it. We've been doing programs since December for all ages, mostly teens and adults, because we had suspended our in-person youth programming over the winter because COVID numbers rose again. But next week, we're really excited. We have both sleepover snacks for school age kids, and then we're doing Hungry Little Children for some pre-Ks, where they're going to do some books and some tasting of the 5 senses, so the 5 tastes. So we've really loved our cart. And I will say with ventilation, the only thing we had to worry about in the space that we're using it in is that we discovered where we had to place it for the most viewing was right underneath the smoke sensor. So we do use a cover. We do use a cover when we're cooking over the smoke detector because steam is not a friend of smoke detectors.
No,
so that's the only thing I will warn you. If you're doing cooking, make sure you're not under your fire devices.
Yeah, great point, Rebecca. And yeah, thanks, Ron and Raquel, and I'll make sure to share everyone's contact information. We're now a little bit behind schedule, but we have a lot of flexibility. I've just opened the breakout rooms back up. I didn't realize this. I think by default, people are automatically slated to go back in the rooms that you were just in, but feel free to join whatever room you want. You may be prompted to rejoin the room that you were in. But you can move to another one if you want to, and you can continue the conversation about the Charlie cart, either in the breakout rooms or here with Raquel and Ron. I put Raquel's contact information in the chat. You can also email info@charliecart.org. Yeah, and thank you so much to both Ron and Raquel. And if you're interested, yeah, follow up with them. But now, kind of, please take a moment to transition back to a breakout room of your choosing for smaller group conversation. Resume the recording. We talked about really wanting to have a good amount of time at the end of this day to really talk about where do we go from here. As Janet said at the beginning, this event really came from just informal conversation, people getting together, meeting on Zoom during the pandemic, talking about issues that we all thought were important, and trying to pool our resources. And so we want to discuss where do we go from here, and to kind of do that in kind of an evidence-based way. I actually first want to share a little bit of data, and I'm going to invite my colleague Nicole Paratori of Augusta University and formerly of the University of Kentucky Extension, to share a little bit of information from a food and library census that Nicole, Chris Darpa, and others worked on developing. So Nicole, do you want to share your screen and your presentation?
Absolutely, Noah. Thank you. Can everyone see okay?
Yep.
Great. So let me make sure you can still see it. So as Noah introduced, we have gotten and talked about and collected some data on some of the different programming and community work and partnerships and information regarding all of the wonderful things that libraries are doing. We know that these wonderful things are happening, but there hasn't been any real investigation or data collected about what actually is happening. And so this is the start of that with some of this data. Before we get into it, I do want to say a few big thank yous, one to Noah and to Chris with all of their help in getting this survey together. And for all of those that have participated in the survey already, I think we're going to get some really interesting and hopefully really groundbreaking information out of this survey. So a little bit about it. The survey was created to really explore and understand, like I said, all of the wonderful things that are being done at public libraries. And we wanted to know not only programmatically what's happening, but also, you know, when we talk about food literacy and food security, all of these things typically are very entwined within communities. And the more that we see libraries as community hubs, the more important it is to understand what is happening on them. And also, what is the interest level if you're not currently doing so in doing some of these ideas. So you can kind of see a couple things here. The survey asked about collections within the library. So do you have seed collections or recipe collections, programming things that are going on, what type of spaces and equipment are used for food related programming, what kind of outreach the library does, communication. So what kind of, do you use social media or newsletters or radio spots? How do you get the word out about what you're doing? Also, if there distribution of food, meals or snacks in those partnerships. And what we, as you can imagine, that's a lot of information. And the way we kind of blocked it off was ask them in relation to those kind of categories and specifics within those. Is that item something that the library was currently doing? Was it something that the library isn't doing now, but had done in the past? Was it something that the library isn't doing, but there are plans to make it happen? Or, you know, it's not currently happening, there are no plans to have it happen. And lastly, you know, there's not really anything happening, but the library may be interested and open to doing that item in the future. We had 432 completed surveys. And you can see here kind of the breakdown of who responded. The other category had a lot of different groups. So some people that worked in communications for the library or strictly program development. We had over 40 states represented in the sample. And you can just kind of see the breakdown of our rural, suburban, or urban populations. And that was a self-selected area. Some of the preliminary results. So you can see that, you know, 72% currently have some things going on here. Hold on one second, let me make sure. When we talk about informational materials related to food and nutrition, this by far was the highest response rate from the sample. And 11% have done it in the past, even though they're not currently doing it now. We also, some of the preliminary data shows that currently those participants, 54% have library displays about recipes or cooking, and 32% have had it at some point in the past. We also saw that 36% are open to having a community pantry or some type of blessing box or produce table at their libraries. And 17% are currently doing that. So we see kind of, you know, this idea, and hopefully some of the conversations today may have spurred some more interest in this. And 52% are open to doing programming around grocery budgeting, and 20% have done it in the past. And I included this specifically because it's another area that with partnerships, I think is a very popular way to really involve community members in a very practical food-based program. We also saw that from this program, 45% of the respondents are currently sharing food-related information and or activities via their social media content. Now, we didn't ask them which social media that they used to do so, but obviously a large amount use that as a method of getting ideas or information or, you know, promoting what's happening out to the community. 25% have done so in the past, and 19% of those participants said they would be open to doing that in the future, using social media in that way. And the last little snippet I wanted to kind of share with you is we did ask, you know, to the best of your knowledge, is the community served by your public library food insecure? And almost 60% of participants reported that yes, in their community, we do have a large number of food insecure people. We have a little over 25%, you can see here, that reported that they were not sure. And then a little over 16% reported no to this question. I think this is something too that is very relevant to the conversation today, to moving forward. When you think about programming in your communities and partnerships that could be made, you know, having this type of knowledge about your community could serve to direct you where you might want to go with those partnerships and programming. So lastly, if you have joined us today and you have not completed the survey, we would love to have you do so. You can see here is a QR code that you can snap to link to it. Obviously, this is recorded and we will post and share this little PowerPoint as well. So if you haven't already, we're going to keep it open for another week. So please feel free to take it, or if you have taken it, share it with others so that they may take it. We would love to make this really as broad as possible to understand what's happening. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Noah. If you want to kind of lead any further conversation, or if there's any questions, I am happy to answer as well.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Nicole. And before we kind of transition into kind of reporting back from the breakout rooms, does anyone have any kind of initial thoughts or commentary about this census effort, or yeah, things that you may be particularly interested in better understanding if we look at this data?
Yes, Christine said share link. I'm going to grab that and I will post it in the chat in the next few minutes.
And also, just as you're thinking about questions, I want to thank Janet. Janet is always so generous with her time, and Janet gave us some really great feedback on the census design as well.
Absolutely.
And things may all kind of just fold together. I know it's we've been talking and conversing for 2.5 hours. So, but I want to just commend everyone. The 58 of you, you're the hardcore. Yeah, and really just so happy that you're here for this last hour. And we wanted to just take a little bit of time to just we couldn't all be in all 5 breakout rooms simultaneously, and I wanted to just hear back from the breakout rooms, and how things went, and maybe just to start, I may put some of our scribes on the spot. Jennifer was in the rural room. Jennifer, do you want to say a little bit about kind of some of the things that you discussed in the rural room, and anything that you'd like to share back with the larger group?
Certainly. Let me pull up my notes here. I took a bunch of notes. Really good discussion among the groups. Let's see here. There's the SNAP Ed programs that work with schools. So they're also trying to work with libraries this summer from a couple different states, Michigan and Louisiana. We talked about different programming that kids could do. Also, like if you're in the free and reduced lunch, there's a lot what libraries are helping out with, but if you don't qualify for that, you could have local restaurants help as well, or do the snack program, which wouldn't be as time intensive or a commitment to as what the actual lunches would be. Should have gave me warning here, Noel. Let me compose my thoughts.
No,
Julie Elmore
And I apologize, Jennifer. Yeah, but it may if you'd like, I'm good at putting people on the spot. I could put my friend and colleague Chris Darpa. Yeah, Chris, do you wanna you wanna share what in your getting started group some of the things that may have came up? Or I'm sorry, in the connecting foods and yeah. Yeah.
And it was, Philip just brought so much a wealth of information and experience to this conversation, as did the folks participating. But I think what struck me was how much more we still have to learn about how to make the best use of our limited resources to pull programming and activities together. And the conversation started in this group in a way, and connections were made among folks in attendance, and a lot of questions about books, and books beyond cookbooks, beyond children's books, beyond, moving into, for instance, literature and popular literature, like Sarah Paretsky's most recent Mystery, which has a long passage about food memories from childhood. So I think, and Philip, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think what we were able to cultivate was some reflection about what food is in our lives and in the lives of our patrons, and ways that we can communicate and share food, share information, experiences around food, to get to this question of what counts as food literacy.
Yeah, and maybe Philip, just if you don't mind putting you on this, I'd love to. I mean, not everyone got to join your group, Philip, but I think that your readers to eaters is such a powerful model. And would you mind just I'll put a link here to your readers to eaters story, but I think a Cliff Notes version would be so powerful just for people to hear, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah. So can you hear me okay? I had to change my my mic. So in terms of what, I'm going to keep this really short, like back to like what readers to eaters do, like I'm working backwards, like two things I want to say is that in terms of what we do as readers to eaters is really telling stories that's focused on food culture, not just food as in health and nutrition. And I keep trying to share what I like to, steer our group discussion about is like, we're not limited by just talk about health and wellness, when we talk about food, and in fact, oftentimes, our favorite food is, it's not about health and wellness at all. It's about the cultural connection to a food. And what, and several questions came up about programming ideas, and what they have and not have or available to them in their library or in their community. And this goes back to my take on my suggestion always is start from yourself, start from what you like, what you connect with, let it be a book you read or a menu that you use or recipe, it's like start with like your personal connection to the food, or the things that link to the food, and then build programming around it. There isn't this kind of template and says, this is how you build out a program, and one example I say is that, again, you can read Harry Potter and you flip it around and say, what if these characters are Latinx? What if these characters are African Americans? And that changes how you want to tell the story, and so you don't have to start with something new or find something that is specifically, African American centric, and I think that's even more challenging to have a deeper conversation, see how these media is reflecting us, and build programming to reach out to who are your partners. I think, that you don't have to reinvent the wheel yourself, but there's already people doing, once you do food and all the food world opens up as your partners, and work with them. And every community has food organizations. And so rather than us saying, these are the 10 things you should do to get started.
Yeah, no, I think that's great, Philip, and I'll just I have kind of a follow-up question, and others feel free to chime in at any point. We're in kind of the open phase of the whole event, so do kind of feel free to jump in at any point or raise your hand if you feel comfortable, or use the chat. But we're really in kind of just open discussion mode right now. But Philip, I agree with you about kind of other organizations being interested in food, and including WIC clinics and so many others. Even humanities groups often do things related to food. And I know you're so connected with different organizations, and I wonder if you have any thoughts about how librarians can go and find those other organizations, and then kind of connect and start working with them.
Well, again, it just depends on, say, if a library want to have a food program, and so you're really doing something about food. So like reach out to all the food organizations in their community. Let it be a community garden, again, food banks. Like, what do they want to know? What are they already having? And just like start building these partnerships, and then usually, in fact, it's not what, in terms of doing food programming, that we talk a lot about how, which is like, the timing, like, thematic, obviously, do you want a fall program? Do you want to do a spring program where you're doing gardening, or do you want to do a thematic one about climate issues or social justice, and then you work backwards and say, well, what's the budget? You can do that much with, a few $100s, and you can do, that much with like tens of thousands of dollars. And I gave example that, I mean, we work with the Skokie Library, and all they use is little Post-it pads and put up like ideas for the community to write down their cultural recipes. That costs like no money at all. And most of these food books that I talk about is already in the libraries, or like we worked at King County Library in Washington, and they had a few years ago, like an entire year long, 180 programs around food, in 1 year. And so that's a very massive one. Again, so it just really depends. But the thing is, like, I always want to talk about programs that you can start with very little, I mean, it doesn't, again, every community has something about food that they can work from.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love Chris, and just thinking creatively about it. And Chris mentioned in the chat this edible book festival. And I love kind of the gamification concept. Another one that I'll just share. Web Junction a few years ago, they had this library in Wisconsin. They had kind of their own kind of community-based Iron Chef, but competition, but encouraging. Yeah, just really thinking of, I mean, not like a serious competition, but just like here's some ingredients. Who can? Yeah, let's make some things, and yeah, just talk about it. But yeah, but I really echo, as Nicole said, I really love what you're saying, Philip, about kind of every community, every person really has something to contribute. I mean, we all eat, and yeah, so we all have something to say and something to contribute to the conversation.
But that's why we like telling stories about food, because to me, it's really not about judgment. Ironically, there's so much judgment behind the food that we eat. And in our group, we talk a lot about, again, culture food. And we, here Sarah Anderson gave the example about, fried chicken being unhealthy, we shouldn't eat it. It's like, but again, if you really go back to the old ways, I mean, like the traditional heritage, like fried chicken is like church food on Sundays only, and in the old days, they don't use as much oil, because they even have like money to buy oil. And so but therefore it's also healthier. And so it's like, you can like break it down and understand different food recipes a little differently. And so, that itself becomes an interesting conversation about why we eat today, and again, we also talk about the example about having literacy without literature. That we don't have to read a book, to have food literacy. We can read a menu, we can read a recipe, and there's always stories behind that, and start with that as a way to engage the community, and so invite the community to bring in recipes and let's talk about it, without judgment, It's not like everybody has a cringe, oh, that's just so much. Somebody else is, oh, like my favorite food has a lot of butter in it. It's like, it's okay, I mean, so long as you don't eat it all the time, everything is okay, honestly. Like you don't eat any food for once or twice and it's gonna, give you diabetes.
I think one of the points made by a participant, I think in the first breakout room, was a certain kind of mourning around food too, food loss, as we change and grow and as our bodies change. There are things that we might have a very strong attachment to in terms of memory around food that we can no longer eat. And that's an interesting and important topic, it seems to me, to explore in communities as well, and in families. All of us came from families with the brother who would only eat bologna sandwiches until he was 25. So this idea that there is, as you say, Philip, no judgment around it, that there are these many challenges and many loves and many memories around food, and all of them are fodder, to continue the the language opportunities here, for conversation around food literacy and food security and food sovereignty.
So again, we like to talk about food. It's all about making connections, and so we use food as a tool to connect back to our own culture, our past, but also with the community. And so how do we talk about that? Again, the question, even though our group is specific on food literacy, we didn't get into the nuts and bolts about actually sharing reading. And interestingly, I try to invite everybody to share their favorite food reads. And there wasn't a long list of that, and maybe like a few, but just a small few. But I think that's okay. But I wonder if the group, later on we get questions like people actually want to have like favorite food books that they want to feature. And we can do that. I guess, getting started is always like kind of the hardest part. So it's nice to have a few books just to, and maybe among us, like, our core group here can share a few like favorite food reads, just to get an example about, it's more than just cookbooks. I gave another example with Linda Sue Park, who's a Newbery winner, and she always says, like, when she reads every book she reads, she always reads like what everybody is eating, because if they don't eat in the books she reads, she doesn't think those characters are real. Like, that's her judgment. It's like, it's like watching a movie. If they go through like 4 days of war and like, or like chasing down bad guys and they don't stop and eat, like, that's just not possible. And so it's just like a fun way. And even when you talk to kids about it, like, again, as a children's publisher, like, what would they be eating if they're in space, and if they're here, they're there.
Yeah, absolutely, Philip. And just to kind of segue a minute, I want to just transition just for 1 second, because Katie Ritson has to step away at 3. So I wonder if Katie and John, if either of you have anything you'd like to share back from the kind of dream big, planning for culinary literacy. I don't know, John or Katie, if either of you have anything you'd like to share back with the big group.
Sure. I mean, I think one of the things that stands out the most is, how people are and can utilize local resources and organizations to help launch and grow their culinary literacy programming, because as a solo effort, it can feel like so much, but there are other organizations out there that can leverage use of the library space, using local farmers and local people who make spices to really amplify the message for the entire community.
And I thought John said I'm muted. Sorry about that. I realized but yeah, I was just going to say thank you, Katie, for everything that you do, and thanks to your library. John, did you have anything you wanted to share from that group?
Sure. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. It's a little staticky, but yeah, we can hear you.
I think a big thing we talked about was like, how do you get the green light for with food literacy within the library? And we were talking about just, making honest, substantive, healthy food, demonstrating the enthusiasm that it gets kids, and then really kind of piggybacking off what was just said, getting community members involved, directly involved, and that's the time to really demonstrate that value of food programming within the library.
Yeah, thanks, John. Yeah, definitely kind of not only partnerships, but also direct involvement of community members and making the case for it all is a big part of planning. So thanks. And I apologize. Christy Bondi has had her hand raised for a minute, and I apologize, Christy, for not seeing it. Christy, do you want to go ahead?
No worries. I'm trying to start my video because I just wanted to share with you. I stepped out. Oh, let's see if I can get it because I want to show you. They saved me a sweet potato and corn salsa taco that they just made from the Charlie cart. So now I'm going to turn off my camera so I can enjoy it. But since we were here, I was like, I have to show you this magnificent lunch that I'm getting ready to have. So.
Yeah, that's awesome, Christy, and that reminds me. So I'm going to and I can stop this if it becomes. But I did want to, since folks took the time to actually send me images, just as we talk, our kind of vision for this last hour was to just have kind of playing in the background some images that people submitted of food at their library, however that looked. This is a hydroponic garden, but this will just be kind of playing in the background. But yeah, just anything. We have half an hour left, so we're really just whatever's on people's minds now we can talk about and brainstorm and strategize. And in about 20 minutes we'll probably close out by talking about where we go from here. But what are people thinking about right now? What are people sitting with after this amazing afternoon or morning, depending on your time zone?
Noah, I wanted to kind of report back from the food programming group. I just wanted to kind of bring to the attention several, both in the early session and the second session, the idea of liability came up a couple times, especially with food. And I know they covered it briefly during the cooking demonstration. But just to emphasize really, knowing your community, talk to your health department, talk to your insurance, know your policies came up a lot. And then the second thing with food programming that came up a lot was the idea of and the need for and the thankfulness for partnership, especially when it comes to doing programming related to food. So kind of utilizing the expertise that is with you and how important that is when we make libraries really that hub of the community.
Nicole, this is Janet, and I feel inspired to hop in here also because it's interesting that some of the same concepts are coming up across the groups. I was facilitating the Food Insecurity and Community Solutions group, and this conversation around partnerships was really strong in that group also. We had in both sessions, there were people who brought so much passion and are doing amazing things to help literally feed their communities. We have libraries that somebody described seed libraries in all of their branches. Somebody described that they are on their way to getting a library fridge for being able to distribute perishable food for free in their community. libraries working with mobile pantries, libraries that have little free pantries on their grounds, libraries that do summer and after school meals and so forth. But that concept of partnership, I don't know if Jessica is still on the line, but Jessica from Snap Ed joined us today. I believe that Jessica is not a librarian, but works with Snap Ed and talked about how her whole realm of partnerships and partners. You'll be all pleased to know that she was very laudatory about libraries and librarians. We're very creative and we're very persistent and we're just in the middle of it. We, for the most part, we're not food service professionals. We're not expected to be food service professionals. We do need to make friends with our health departments. We do need to make friends with our people who actually do food service. But we can be the center where this all happens, or we can be part of how this all happens. In our first session, I think the main challenge that was talked about was buy-in, because this can feel like mission creep if you're not bought into the idea. But we talked at some length about what the difference is between, say, a public library at 3:30 in the afternoon with a middle school next door, where all of those kids ate lunch at 10:30 in the morning and haven't eaten for 5 hours and are now in your library, if you have a snack for them versus if you don't have a snack for them. And just the like unspeakable difference in behavior that is going to take place in your library. We also talked about libraries that provide a lot of different things for people who are unhoused, and how a large diffuse community that's already using the library and that has a lot of needs can so easily be served by other things that we are capable of doing in partnership with our partners. We had some great ideas and some great support for each other regarding how to communicate up about the need for I would call it the need, but about the importance and appropriateness of the library participating in all of these ways. I can't tell you how grateful I am for everybody who's here today. I wish I'd been able to talk to everyone, but all the folks who came through the food insecurity session are doing amazing things, and your heart and your courage are very strong, and I just applaud you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Janet. It's always your energy and enthusiasm is just always amazing. Just one quick follow-up on something that Janet said was Janet mentioned she wished she could talk with everyone, and that's kind of I'll kind of pose this as a question. How can we stay connected with each other? How can we kind of continue to support each other, stay abreast of what we're doing? I mean, we could certainly continue to have quarterly or even monthly Zoom calls if people feel like that would not be too much. But yeah, what are your thoughts? What would be your preference in terms of staying connected with people in your region, across the country, around some of the topics that we've been talking about today? Yeah, so Christy says a listserv. That's definitely doable.
I wonder whether a monthly or quarterly just drop in meetup sort of, something, not a Zoom, but not 3.5 hours long, because we can only do that every once in a while. And I am so grateful for everybody who spoke today, and this was a really cool structure, but I would love to just be able to have sort of a drop-in maybe, we should probably have a topic each time so that it's not just completely random and people feel motivated to come. But other than that, just let it be sort of an open conversation. People can share what recent programs they've done in their library that have been successful, or troubleshoot together if something was not so successful, or if they're trying to get something going and they need to figure out how to get it funded, or need to figure out who the partners are. And, just have that space where we can talk together about these sorts of things on the quarterly, maybe. I know that scheduling that is going to be difficult because we're stretched across a number of time zones. And while I think that the majority of folks who were here today are public libraries, and they're probably most free-ish between 2 and 4 their time zone, because that's when the libraries are fully staffed. That's different from many school librarians or academic librarians here. So we'll just do the best we can. We got 100 people in the room at this time on a Thursday, so maybe we can do it again once in a while.
Yeah, and just I see Amanda said about in-person meetups, and I want to just so one in our last planning call we talked about ALA's annual conference coming up, and I know Philip is going to be at ALA, and we thought like let's if other people are going to be at ALA, I mean, you can reach out to Philip or just put something in the chat, or just say I'm going to be at ALA. Let's let's talk, because I know Philip is definitely super excited about meeting people in person at ALA if people may be there. But other opportunities as well, doing things at state conferences, other whenever there's a gathering of librarians, that's an opportunity to talk about food.
Can I jump in? I just want to kind of follow up something on Janet mentioned. So it's kind of combination. Our group been kind of somewhat meeting every month, but we can also continue to monthly meeting, but also on a quarterly basis. Like, so maybe 1 month, the topic would be actually about reading, about books, and then another month, on a quarterly basis. So every 3 months, the book topic would come back again. Another month, the book topic is about partnerships, and maybe we can even invite, guest speakers, we can even have an author to come in and talk about books, but even, or maybe just among ourselves, and talk about like another time, like if, like specific how having a partner, it's great to hear, for example, hearing about Oldways today, right? Maybe we can always bring somebody else, come in and speak about from a food bank angle, or from a WIC center, or for a SNAP Ed angle, how do they want to work with libraries, and maybe do that on a quarterly basis, but we still, while we rotate other topics. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, maybe another month, we'll talk about, funding issues specifically, or something like that, so we can see. But I can see that, then people are specifically interested in the book part, the literacy part, or the partnership part, just basically coming in just once a quarter, so it's not a monthly commitment, but we have like a monthly meeting every time.
Yeah, and I'm just seeing there's been in the chat, there's been a good sidebar conversation about listservs, which I mean, I think listservs, and I also want to make just I think it went by a few minutes ago, but Chris Darpa, she if people are on Facebook, Chris created the Libraries and Food Facebook group. But yeah, I think I think different electronic ways to kind of pull people together. Yeah, both electronic and in person, and travel. So Amanda says travel to other libraries. I think that would be actually be super cool, and it's something I've thought about. Like, I mean, the funding would be the tricky thing, but I mean, wouldn't it be amazing if there was some sort of fellowship program that would enable a librarian to go and travel around the region or even the country to see what other libraries are doing? Like, yeah, I love that travel idea.
No, let me just clarify that the Libraries and Food Facebook page actually was created to facilitate continued discussion of this particular event. So it really is dedicated to continuing these conversations and information sharing. I hope folks will use it that way. I just keep it up to date.
No, but yeah, I think you're selling yourself a little short, Chris. I joined it, and you've been posting some really, really great content. But yeah, and also on Instagram as well, and yeah, and And I want to go back. So a few minutes ago, Amanda mentioned the book club. So some of you may know the American Library Association. Earlier this year, they had a virtual book club based around actually this book. I have it here, Ask, Listen, Empower, which was a book that ALA published. And so they got some funding to send people free copies of that book, and then the librarians met online and discussed it. I mean, that kind of virtual book club idea, I mean, it could be around Hillary Dodge's book or one of Philip's books, or I mean, yeah, we could, but some sort of virtual convening in which people kind of maybe read or watch a video or try something and then come back and talk about it. I think that's a really interesting idea, Amanda. And I didn't participate in that group, but Amanda, if you're kind of near a mic or can turn on your mic, I'd love to hear a little bit more about how that worked and what you got out of it, and any ideas about how that may be applicable to kind of what we've been talking about today.
Yeah, so I'm new to the director world right now at the current library that I'm at in Nashville, North Carolina, but Christy Bondi and myself both participated in the ALA lovely book chapter that we read at Perry Memorial Library in Henderson, North Carolina. So it was really, really interesting to listen to different authors that kind of focused on one chapter of the book for the community engagement, and just kind of having those discussions with other librarians from ALA. I think it was free to join. You didn't even have to be a member of ALA, so it was really kind of nice to have that opportunity as well. So I think too, like if we just focused on certain topics, kind of like what Philip mentioned, and just maybe like share a couple articles, and then everyone, I mean, we're going to find other articles that we could also add to that as well, or other ideas or different avenues, and just kind of have like an open discussion. Definitely not for 3 hours, but just like an hour in the day, maybe over lunch, and we can all eat lunch and hide behind videos and muted mics and stuff like that. But I think that would be a great idea. Or people that are able to meet in person, it would be nice too, just to have coffee. Or there's a lot of different things that are local to each different region in North Carolina in particular, or we'll work on writing a grant or something, to let's have librarians move between libraries or something. We could start like a whole segue from let's move in libraries. But
No, thank you. I think those are great ideas, and I love the idea of kind of just organic growth. Like you don't need to necessarily have like a whole itinerary but it's like month to month or quarter to quarter or whatever frequency kind of is part of the regular convening. Part of that would be set aside to planning the next convening. I think I like that. And Amanda, just since so Janet mentioned a minute ago, one of the challenges is different time zones, and I wonder with the ALA, was that a challenge at all? Did people have difficulties in different time zones, or do you know how they may have finessed that?
I can't recall exactly what time. I think it was around noon, so I think it was noon Eastern. So that would be, hit or miss. I think if it's later in the day, for East Coast, it gets too close to lunch. It was at noon. Thank you, Christy. I'm also texting with Christy too. So we're filling in all the communication here. So she's the one who actually told me about this. I had no idea about this Zoom. So I was named, I do miss her. Yes, Christy, thank you. She was a great mentor. Let me also throw that too. I will continue to play up my former library. But yes, I do believe it was at noon, and that seemed like a good time for time zones as well.
No, thank you for sharing all that, Amanda. And yeah, we're just looking at the time. We have about 13 minutes left. And I think and I'll just there was a question about kind of resources. So in all the rooms except for one, sorry, Janet, just kind of worked out that way. We had people in the breakout rooms keeping notes on what was discussed. So we are planning to send the recording of this main room, which will have closed captions put on it. And apologies that I didn't set it up to do automatic. I was trying to figure it out, but couldn't. But there will be closed captions from the main room, as well as additional resources that were mentioned. And a short survey just about what you like the most, what you'd like to see different, and what you'd like to see come next. And so, yeah, please look for that in your inbox in a week from today, and please do take some time to share some feedback that way as well. But yeah, just going back to the discussion, Philip says, do we want support from ALA or PLA? Yeah, I think that's yes, please, yes. But yeah, I don't know, for Philip or for anyone else, does anyone have any thoughts? Or yeah, I mean, this has been a truly just an informal group of people from different walks of life and different parts of the country just came together. I think, yeah, kind of getting that institutional support and backing would be essential, I think, for long-term sustainability. And I wonder if Philip or others have any thoughts about how we get the ears and perhaps the pocketbooks as well of some of these larger organizations.
Yeah, Noah, if I can give a little more background. So, obviously ALA is coming up. So I'm actually on a panel with the ALA president. So I kind of have can plant this idea, and we met with the PLA president, incoming president, at PLA. And so they both individually, Patty Wong, the ALA president, is here in Santa Clara County Library here in Bay Area. Maria McCauley is at the Cambridge, Boston Library System, and they both have a lot of food programming anyway. So they're very familiar. And in fact, Patty has worked with WIC centers on her own. But the conversation comes up because here, many libraries, we talk about SNAP-Ad and WIC fundings, they're locally scrambling to find a money trail, to find the support. So now if there are enough libraries that are doing this kind of work, including their own library, why not have ALA go to the USDA for part of that funding to funnel down on a national level, rather than individual libraries going to get grant money from SNAP-Ads. So that's one conversation. That's one example of we're trying to see how we can organize on a national level. But I'm just kind of curious, are there other issues that you all can think of that at a national level, ALA can help becoming the rally point for you all?
I think that's a really important question, Philip, and a way of sort of revitalizing and reconnecting to ALA. I know, you keep hearing stories of people who feel disconnected, and the pandemic didn't help. So this may be a way to bring some life back to our professional organization that, as professional organizations go, is a tremendously powerful and influential group. And this topic just, transcends any particular ethnic group, racial group, geographic location. And there are, as you point out, it's a federal priority. It's a priority at the federal level, food security, addressing hunger. And I think we can expand that to something like food literacy as well. And what better place than libraries?
Well, this goes to the conversation we have. Ultimately, say, ALA, they are an advocate for literacy, not just books, and so they should go and find all the literacy partner they can. And in this case, food is one big way. When you have, WIC and SNAP-Ed going by, just like we talk about, like libraries are feeding 20, 30,000 kids, in one city, during the summer meal programs. Well, one state like the WIC, the SNAP-Ed program in Maryland is buying 50,000 copies of books to hand out. That's pretty significant. But they don't really know, honestly, what to do with it. So we're working with them. And so first thing we do is putting them in touch with the Maryland Library Association, right? And so it's like, but they're working backwards. They nutrition education first, bought the book, and then now what we're going to do with it. And so that's why it makes sense to partner with the libraries.
Yeah, and I like Julia. Julia says, national organizations could help kind of just build up exposure to what's happening, and build up interest and enthusiasm. Building up that kind of feeling of feeling like you can do something. Just making But I want to just I know Philip mentioned WIC clinics, but one thing, so I just am wrapping up a study I did with the South Carolina Center for Rural and Primary Healthcare, and we asked public libraries across South Carolina about some of the organizations that they may work with, and so we asked a series of questions. Given the following organizations, would you say the relationship between your library and this organization is very close, somewhat close, or not very close? And the organization that libraries across the state reported the weakest relationships with was WIC clinics. They were at the absolute bottom. Around 90% of libraries said they had not very close relationships with WIC clinics. And I'll just say, for me, I think one potential role of national organizations is to be that bridge. I mean, there's certainly people, to really connect libraries to some of these other pillars of kind of our nation's food infrastructure. I mean, USDA and its many tentacles, but also others. And yeah, I mean, and I don't know exactly what that looks like per se, but I think we know at the local level, librarians in many communities are so closely connected with so many different organizations, but we don't really have a comparable cross infrastructure at the national level. It seems like there's more separation at the national level, and also in many states at the state level, compared to the dense kind of connections that exist locally. But I don't know. That's just something I've been thinking about. I don't know if anyone has any thoughts about how we can close that gap, not only locally but state and nationally as well.
But this may come out of some of our ongoing conversations. And so like later on, as we keep talking, it's like, think about like partnerships, and, some of these partners may be able to fund some of these local library programs, but some of these could be, national partners. Like, what if we get, again, we've had conversations with like, Legos, it turns out to be a big, like, have a literacy arm, like we're working with a lot of organizations they're looking for ways to fund, literacy. but how, right? We even have conversation with Toyota. Well, guess what? They make like, you know, minivans. And so they have an interest to promote family reading, you know, and so we've had these kind of conversations. But so some of these are, it's hard for an individual branch library, you know, a regional, a local library to tackle these kind of partners. But again, it starts with us coming up with the ideas. Then we can take it up to the national level or state level and say, you know, I mean, here I'm in the Bay Area and we're trying to do like health and wellness. You know, can we get Kaiser Permanente, like, you know, the biggest insurers here, like they're headquartered in Oakland. Like, wouldn't it make sense to have them fund some of these, like, you know, statewide programs? You know, again, we just have to come up with the idea first before we find the right people to contact them. And same thing with you all, like, you know, every region, every state have your biggest employers who would have an interest for health and wellness in your community, you know, and fund like food literacy programs accordingly. You know, so that's what we're trying to think about. You know, not everything is national, but some of them could be just state, you know.
Yeah, no, I think that's so important, Philip, and I love what you said about kind of coming up with ideas, because I think that's such a powerful way of collective kind of idea generation, and you're right. I mean, a funder is going to look more favorably on an initiative that says, I don't know, we have 30 libraries of different geographies and different community types, and they're all committed and want to do this, but they need some help to be able to try this out. So yeah, I think that would be another powerful way to kind of use our collective voice. I am just looking at time. I'm sure people are ready to sign off and stretch and take a break. So I'm going to turn off the recorder in just a minute, but we can continue chatting if people want to continue chatting. But I wanted to do just a really quick housekeeping. So 1 week from today, I will be sending kind of a post-event summary with a recording of the main room and an amalgamation of resources shared in the breakout rooms. That will also include a link to the Facebook group that everyone's welcome to join, and please do, as well as the slide deck of people's photos that they submitted. So you'll have all the resources at your fingertips. And then we know summer is about to arrive. I'll include there, if Philip, if you don't mind, I'll include Philip's email address. If you are going to ALA, please do meet up with Philip. He would love to meet anyone going to ALA in person in June. And then we had talked about maybe just sometime in September trying to get the band back together, as it were. And so after summer has kind of cooled down, probably the first meeting we may just pick out of necessity kind of an arbitrary time, but then just let's get together for an hour sometime in September, and let's see where we can go, because I think we have a really powerful group of people here, and I really do believe that from this collective we can do amazing things, not only in our communities, but can really, I'll just say it, I think we can transform food systems and food culture, and support food cultures that have been historically marginalized, and really make a lot of phenomenal changes by working together. So I want to just thank everyone again for your participation. And we have, like I said, a huge number of people came together to make this happen. So from any of the organizers, do any of you have any final thoughts you want to share before we break for today?
Can I add one thought? Like,
yes,
Food Literacy Month
please.
is September, and many schools and libraries are trying to plan, like Oregon, Portland is just trying to plan to join, like have the governor proclaim Food Literacy Month. And so it's actually a very easy process. Every politician's had, like every mayor and governor has on their website how to submit a proclamation. But I also can help you, like, you know, in terms of language and so on, but it has to be a local organization, which makes sense. And so, you know, if you're interested, it's a great way to build partnerships. It's really a whole month to set up food, promote food education, you know, and leads us to October, which is National Farm to School Month. So, again, it's like now is the time. Usually you need to submit in early summer to get a response, for September. So just want to get that on everybody's calendar if you're interested, or you can write me.
No, thank you, Philip, and I'll make sure to really highlight that in the post event summary as well, so people have some, because I'm sure everyone probably summer is probably set, but people may be now thinking about the fall, so very timely to raise that. Well, great. Well, thanks again, everyone, for coming